Good morning. Today is Thursday, April 30, and we are covering Algebra 2 IXL Skill K3, which is multiplying polynomials. And again, like all of these IXL skills we've been doing, this starts out fairly simple, but it will get increasingly complex. What I've noticed mostly as I've gone through the problems is that it starts out with just multiplying two monomials, then a monomial maybe to a binomial. Those are pretty easy to do using multiplication or distribution. Then we start to get into multiplying binomials, and of course we have to use things like FOIL, and we have to recognize special types of binomial pairs. And those are things that you've received and done before. I'm going to concentrate simply on the basic rules that apply to all polynomials. So you're going to be able to multiply polynomials hopefully quite well by the time you're done with this. And the rule that I want you to concentrate on is that to multiply powers with the same base, okay? So remember the base, that's that little number. Let's say if you have 4 to the 6th, this is the base, okay? And then this is the exponent. And you also see that as, let's say that if the base is a variable, you might have x to the 4th, so that x would be your base and 4 would be your exponent. So you would multiply powers with the same base. So in this case, it would have to be 4 to the 6th and 4 to something else power. And this would be x to the 4 and x to the something else power. You have to have the same base. And when you have the same base, then what you simply do is keep the base and add the exponents. So we're going to go through that process now. All right, and of course, please use that piece of paper with a plastic sheet so that you can write your problems down. Use your Expo dry erase marker. You can erase it right afterwards and move on. All right. Now, here's our first example. So, example 1, we're going to multiply. Yes, we're going to find the product of two monomials, negative az squared and negative z to the 4th. And remember, a monomial is just a polynomial that has only one term to it. So there is one term. There's another term, and then you're multiplying those two monomials together. And then we want to simplify our answer. So what I did here when I looked at this is I thought, we are going to need to do some factorization and get the numbers out and multiply them together, and then we've got the two bases, the z, that it's the same, and we're going to be adding the exponents. So I decided to factor out the 8 here, and for that matter to factor out the negative 1. You'll see the negative sign there. There's really a negative 1 next to the z. Then we should be able to easily deal with the z squared and the z to the 4th, multiplying those together. So here's how I did it. So I factored out negative 8, and I multiplied that to negative 1, because normally that's what we would do. We multiply negative 8z squared times negative 1z to the 4th. So negative 8 times negative 1 is 8. Negative times a negative is a positive. Now over here I have z squared times z to the 4th, the rest of it. And you're using commutative property here, that's true. But I think when you think factoring first in this case makes it easy. So now with these two exponents, since their base is the same, we add together the exponents. So I rewrote this as 8 times z to the 2 plus 4, and then of course you add those together and simplify you have 8 times z to the 6th, and then of course here's the final form of the answer, 8z to the 6th. Okay, so it's not that difficult to do. You just need to be careful and go through the steps. Remember to stop and start your video, because if you stop and start your video, you get time to take notes, you get time to think things through. Don't just make a decision if you aren't sure, because you'll more than likely get it wrong. Use your paper. Please use your graphing calculator, because if you do use this, all these positives and negatives that you're dealing with that confuse you, you can take care of those fairly quickly. So use your calculator. All right. So our next example, I decided to show you a monomial being multiplied to a binomial. And when we've done this before in the olden days, we called it distribution, but it's still the same thing, and it's multiplication. So the product of is multiplying 7 times 2s squared minus 6. So here we have it over here. We're going to distribute. So remember what distribute looks like. You're going to multiply the 7 to the 2, and then the s squared comes along, and you're going to multiply the 7 to the negative 6. So 7 times 2 is 14, the s squared comes along. So notice here in this problem, you aren't going to have to add together exponents because there's only one variable. The one s squared that was up here, 2s squared. So 2 times 7, I said, is 14s squared, bringing it down. Now 7 times negative 6, positive times a negative, is negative 42. So that's simplified, and that seems pretty darn easy. And it is, but you're using the same principles all the way through this. So I'm going to show you one more, and then I'm going to turn this over to you. This example, you're multiplying together 2 binomials. Now, you've seen this before many a time. This is your two binomials that when multiplied together can become a quadratic trinomial. So that's just an aside on it. We're just going to multiply these together. And the way we do that is using FOIL. So I rewrote my problem here. And then I'm just going, I wrote the problem again because I just want to remind you that you're multiplying the 2g to the g. So that's what we call first to first. And then 2g to negative 4, that's outer to outer. And then 3g to the, to the g, that's inner. And then 3 times negative 4, so last to last, that's the distribution pattern that we use when we do FOIL. But remember, FOIL is nothing but distribution. So if you want to multiply 2g to g, then 2g to negative 4, and then 3 to g, and 3 to negative 4, that's just doing consecutive distribution. But that's really exactly what we did here. Okay? All right, so we're going to go ahead and do the multiplication now. So 2g times, in this case, g, 2g times g is nothing more than 2g squared, because 2 times, this is 1g, yeah, and so that's 2 times 1 is 2, and g times g is g squared. And then 2g times negative 4, well, that's 2 times negative 4, which is negative 8, and then the g comes along for the ride. Notice I've inserted it here with a plus sign in front of it. I wanted you to see that you came up with a negative result. We'll resolve positive and negatives when I get to the end of this. So then we're going to multiply 3 times g, that's 3g, and then 3 times negative 4, and so that's going to be negative 12, and I've set it up again this way. All right. So now we're going to combine those like terms and simplify. So first let's get rid of the positive negative thing going here. So I wrote 2g again, 2g squared again, and then I changed plus negative 8 to negative 8 because positive times a negative is negative. And then I brought down the 3g, and then I multiplied positive 1 times negative 12, and that's negative 12. Okay, so I've gotten rid of the negative positive thing by doing that, and I still have like terms that I want to combine and I want to simplify. So 2g squared, that's the only term that has a square in it, but negative 8g and 3g are likes. We can combine those, and of course what happens is they combine here to form negative 5g. And so we rewrite this as 2g squared minus 5g, because negative 8 plus 3g is negative 5g, and then minus 12. And sorry about that, I didn't get this all the way down in time to see it. This kind of looks like a smiley face on the end of a string, but it's really an arrow down showing you that these two terms, when combined, become negative 5g. All right, so there are other multiplication combinations, but and you've been through them, you've done this before, so I'm not going to go back and reinvent the wheel on a lot of this. I just simply want to make sure you understood that, you know, if you've got something like 2g and you're multiplying it to another problem with the same base, so this is a negative 5g. If I'd been multiplying those together, I would multiply the 2 times the negative 5, and then the g squared and the g, I just add together their exponents. So 2 plus 1, that would have been negative 10 g cubed if this was multiplication of these two terms, but it's not. These are added together, and even though you see the negative signs there, you recognize you can add negative terms. All right, we're done. That's everything for today, and I will let you loose on skill A2 skill, IXL skill K3, multiplying polynomials.